Have you ever felt disconnected even with so many friends online? It's Andrew, and welcome back to my channel. And today I wanted to explore 3 practical ways to stay connected online. I'm also here with my friend Andy,
Up.
and we'll get right into it. So, I was listening to a podcast this week on the science of networks and human relationships, and I learned some interesting tips. So I wanted to share them and yeah, some of my thoughts on it. So there's 3 tips that I wanted to share. Tip number 1 is develop a system to check in with people on a regular basis. So the first part is how do we stay connected with our close friends? And then second part is there might be some friends we haven't talked to in a while. How do we do this? And one way is to develop a system around it. So, Andy, do you have any experiences around how to check in regularly with people?
Yeah, so I think that before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this, there
Mm,
is always the issue of, oh, what if I'm doing this too much? I think that there's a line you have to draw or you have to figure it out yourself. And it's different with different people. Like different people have different thresholds and different lines. But there is always that to worry about. You don't want to ping people too often if they don't like that or if they're pretty busy. That's something that you need to keep in mind. So context is important. In terms of like how to actually do this, I think that with social media nowadays, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going on in other people's lives, or at least to get somewhat updated in terms of what they're doing. And if you're not on your feed 24/7 and you want to rekindle something with someone that you know, whether it be a good friend or someone that you haven't talked to in a very long time, you could go to their social media profile, whatever that platform may be, and just check out some of the stuff that they've been posting. And based off of that, you can use that to very easily start a conversation. Or if you know that they're more up for a call, then you can simply ask for that. So I think that those are some pretty simple ways um, to do that, to check in.
mhm. And then I find that, especially during this time, people are open to connecting because, yeah, everyone's fighting against like the same cause, and whether you're staying home or essential services, like we all
Hmm.
appreciate a message that we're being cared for.
Hmm.
One thing I heard on the podcast is we're influenced by not just the 5 people around us, but actually we are influenced by people of 3 degrees of separation. So that means even friends of friends of friends, they influence us. Why I want to bring this up is keeping in touch with the people who we don't normally talk to. It gives us a sense of inspiration because we know that they're part of different circles and they have different experiences and a different network than us,
Hmm.
and we can actually find really interesting conversations to hop on. One thing you said was going on social media to like see how people are doing and bring it up in conversation. So, what platforms have you been using?
I usually message people or I ask them for a call. One thing that I have learned from this process is don't ever send a message or be very cautious when sending a message that might sound like you're trying to set something in stone without the other person's agreement. So, for example, if you want to call people, let's say your goal is to call people, right? Because you like talking to people on the phone as opposed to texting, and you're messaging people because you want to call them. I would be cautious and advise against sending messages that are of the nature that basically messages that imply that the meeting is already set. Like sending messages like if you were to contact someone and you start a conversation like how are things going? Oh, things are going good. How are you? sending a message like, is a call at 5 p.m. tomorrow good with you? Right? Like it's now obviously the other person can say no, but it's better to approach it with a way that gives them the option.
So you're saying to lead them into a conversation rather than force a call immediately on them.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly my point. Yeah, so for example, you could say something like, oh, how is this social distancing and isolation thing going for you, right? And then you can have a conversation around that, and then you can say something like, oh, for me, I've been keeping up with friends by having calls with them. I'd be interested in having a call with you later today if you're okay with that. Another bit of advice to give in relation to the situation is you get to choose who you message.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you have that power. You might think that it's really tedious at first to be the one reaching out to people, but it's a lot easier to have to reach out to people that you want to talk to than have other people reach out to you and you not really wanting to talk to them. So, yeah.
Right. And yeah, respecting that, like, for others and also for yourself. Like,
Mhm.
sometimes people just don't have the capacity to take on a conversation at this
Exactly.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tip number 2, growing
It's
your network, even during this time. You could do this through friends of friends, or different societies or clubs, or different online meetup groups. So along the lines here, in the podcast, they talked about how to help people build new connections, especially through existing connections. Do you have any experiences around, yeah, growing your network even during this time?
it depends on the purpose
Mm-hmm.
of you wanting to grow your network. So, for example, if you want more insight on future career paths that you could take, and by growing your network, you mean talking to other people, then that's definitely something that, for first of all, you have to identify your purpose. And second of all, you have to identify the social media platform or the connections that would best help you achieve that purpose. So, for example, like if we're running with the example of you wanting career advice, then you could check LinkedIn, because
Mm-hmm.
during this whole situation, there's been a lot of people posting, offering free services, free coaching calls, and similar services in order to help students and other professionals out there navigate their career, especially with potential layoffs and everything, right? Now, if your network, if you're, if the purpose for you wanting to network is to get to know people that you didn't get the opportunity to talk to a lot in person, then you would have to know what would kind of be the best way to approach that person. So, for example, let's say you're a part of um, a society, right? It could be your department. If your department is engineering, it could be within engineering. It could be within a student team. It could be within a club. Like, if you are a part of those uh, societies or groups, and you know someone that you've worked with closely and you find them interesting, but you don't really know them as like a person, and like that would be like, now is kind of like a good chance to reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? Because you have this whole situation as a conversation starter, right? That could be something you could use to start a conversation. But what I personally find is very useful in order to achieve things like this successfully is knowing the main method to reach them at, right? Usually people have different social media accounts, right? But and usually with those accounts, they have a primary preferred one. So it goes a long way to ask someone what platform they use often. So, like, going with an example here, if you're on a student team and you meet someone and they're pretty cool and you want to connect with them, let's say you meet them, let's say your student team communicates through Slack, right? Assuming that channel is still active, you could just send them a message there and ask what platform they use. And if they use, like, let's say they have Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and they use Facebook often, then now you know to message them through Facebook. Because if you don't do this, I'm assuming you're only going to message them through Slack. And because Slack is specifically for student team stuff, there's a low chance that they'll see it. So I think that that's a pretty important aspect to consider when reaching out to people you don't normally talk to.
Have you also reached out to people that you don't know during this time?
Yeah, so I have, but not directly. So people that offer coaching calls, or if there are mentoring programs out there, that's basically an opportunity, a very easy opportunity for you to connect with people you've never met before. Now, you can do this using something like LinkedIn, but you would need LinkedIn Premium in order to message people that you aren't connected with. Or if they, like, there are certain people that you can message that have, like, I think there's a setting or something that you can set in your profile to allow anybody to message you, or if you're a recruiter. I don't know exactly how it works, but I have been able to message people without LinkedIn Premium. So that's something you can do. Instagram, you can just Instagram DM. And this goes back to the whole thing that we were talking about on our previous episode, which I'm sure Andrew will throw a link down to the description below for the playlist, where we talked about networking and providing value. And I think that if you want to reach out to someone and you want to talk to them because you're interested in, again, let's go with the example of different career paths, then it's a good idea to try to provide some value, or at the very least, don't go in with an initial message saying that you want something from this person, right? Like, ask for it, don't expect it. And if you have the opportunity to talk to them because they put themselves out there, then at the end of your conversation, again, try to offer some value. An example that I have is I was recently talking to a person that I met on Instagram, and at the very end of our conversation, he talked about how he might try to launch a product at UBC, and I immediately said, "Oh, I'm from UBC, so if it's student oriented, feel free to shoot me a message, and I could potentially get you connected with whoever I know that may help out with your product." So it's just simple stuff like that that you can keep in mind in order to help you maximize the chances of getting a good experience from reaching out to people that you may not normally reach out to.
Yeah, something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, third tip. Ask sincerely how I can support you and share your honest concern and care for them. I think it relates back to the first point and some of our previous videos as well, just like calling people, seeing how they are, and just wondering how that's going and what do you see is working for you and what's not.
I think that, again, it depends on your relationship with the person.
Yeah.
If you don't normally talk to someone and you suddenly reach out to them saying, "Hey, how can I support you during this time?" It's gonna sound a little awkward because you don't have that close a relationship with them. So toning it down a bit, you could ask something as simple as, like, "How are things going?"
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of the same idea. One level up would be something like, "How has this experience affected your lifestyle or
Right.
productivity?" And then, if you are in a close relationship, like family or partner, then you can ask something like, is there anything wrong, or are you facing any challenges right now that I could help you? So there are, like, certain levels based off of your relationship with whoever you're trying to reach out to, I would say. So just keep that in mind when offering support.
Right. That's something I'm still keeping in mind because on one side, yes, you do want to care for them, but at the same time, it might be too sudden. Even though you have a good heart for people, you might shock them a bit because you haven't kept in touch. I've just been almost daily messaging people that I haven't talked to in a while, or checking back on people regularly to see like how they're doing and what they're up to these days. And like hopefully conversations can come up again and like we can spark a friendship again or relationship to another level in this time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So in terms of how to stay connected online in a situation like this, what tip would you what tip have you found the most effective at doing this?
I think the third tip, because it conversations just start with the message and you don't know where it could lead to. It could lead to a call. It could lead to even a series of calls, who knows?
Hmm.
Or it could be you being invited into several Facebook groups or like Discord chats, or like, I found that really interesting. It's really good to just catch up with people because yeah, you haven't talked to them in a while. Things have changed. They might be doing something really interesting that you don't know about. So yeah, that'll be a wrap for today. Yeah, thanks Andy for the discussion. You can
Yeah,
find
no
his
problem.
links down in the description.
Hmm.
And thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's video. And comment below on which tip you found helpful, and also what type of other content you do want to see. So yeah, if you like today's content, just smash the like button and click subscribe for our next videos. We'll see you guys soon.